I, 22 male, just learned that my sister, 29 female, had an abortion to be able to donate me part of her liver. It caused her divorce and I can't stop hating myself. I was very sick 4 years ago and was in need of a liver transplant. My situation was that it was very unlikely that I would get one in time. At that time, my sister was pregnant. I didn't know as it was early and she was only 2 months. My situation was getting worse and my sister decided to have an abortion, and then 2 months later, we did the transplant surgery. I never knew about the pregnancy. All I knew was that she gave me half of the liver. My sister and her husband divorced a year later. I didn't know the truth until yesterday when my mom slipped up about the abortion that my sister had. I asked her about it and she told me everything. She told me that my sister made her promise not to tell me and she failed that promise. My sister was very happy. My brother-in-law was a very decent guy. I knew they were looking forward to having children. They were great together. She always told us about how lucky she is to have found him. Apparently, at the time of their decision, my sister and her husband had great disagreement. He didn't want her to have the abortion and risk the transplant surgery and was hopeful that my situation might sort itself out without my sister's help. The chance was very small, but it was there. My sister didn't agree. They couldn't convince one another, and my sister did things anyway without his blessing. They tried working things out after the surgery. They went to counseling. They even tried to have another baby, but they couldn't get themselves to do it. He couldn't forgive my sister, and she wasn't all that apologetic, so they ended up separating and eventually divorcing. I asked my mom if my sister still thinks that she did the right thing, and she said she's not sure. I can't stop feeling guilty. My sister saved my life, but destroyed her own life by doing it. She had to abort the baby she definitely loved and looked forward to, and did that knowing that it will probably end her marriage as well. I was ready to go at that time. I had accepted my fate and I was at peace. She should have just let me. My brother-in-law should have told me, so I would have talked her out of it. I'm surprised he didn't, and I can't feel anything but hate for myself. I don't know what to do. Should I talk to my sister? What should I tell her? Should I keep my mouth shut and pretend that I don't know? I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to look into her eyes and not show that I know. I just don't know what to do. Please, please help me.
Am I the asshole for yelling at my husband's ex-girlfriend? My 28 female, husband 29 male, and I have been together for 4 years. We have 1 child, 2 female together. His ex, 29 female, has never gotten over their breakup even though it's been 5 years. Also, I met him around 6 months after they broke up. She went through a lot of lengths to break us up and absolutely lost it when we announced our engagement. She showed up to our wedding in a white dress, and we later found out it was because my mother-in-law invited her as a +1. I tried to ignore it and keep the peace until she tried to pour wine on my wedding dress. I lost it and kicked her out. We went no contact with the mother-in-law since that incident and only keep contact for our daughter. His ex-girlfriend is still bitter about him breaking up with her, and she sometimes does things like follow me to the grocery store or follow us on date nights. This Thanksgiving, we had a dinner planned for close family and made the mistake of inviting mother-in-law. She brought his ex, and I tried to be polite and set up an extra spot at the table because I didn't want to be rude. Everything went well until my daughter woke from her nap before dinner and his ex raced to pick her up. She was saying things like, "Mama's here, baby. Don't worry, Mama's here for you," and I felt very uncomfortable. I then attempted to take my daughter back, and she would not let go. She said I should let her have a few seconds from the life she had stolen from her. I saw red and told her she was out of line and needed to leave and not come back.
Am I the asshole for giving my son the same name as an ex and not telling my husband? So, I'm 32 female and my husband is also my age. We met in grad school 9 years ago, got married 5 years ago, and have a 3-year-old son, Isaiah. His name isn't Isaiah, but something like it. Similar and traditional without being overly common for boys in North America. It was recently homecoming weekend and my 10-year reunion from my undergrad. My husband knows that I had one serious relationship in undergrad. It lasted 2 years with someone named Ben. What he doesn't know is that I also dated Isaiah for 6 months after. My relationship with Isaiah was not as serious as it was with Ben, and since I lived away from home, I never introduced my family to Isaiah. I didn't want to concern them with the new relationship either, as I didn't enjoy having to announce my breakup with Ben to the whole family. I never told him because I liked that name as a baby name. So, we're in my college town for the weekend and out to dinner. Isaiah walks in with some of his old friends and immediately comes up to us and introduces himself to my husband. Since his name isn't super common, I see my husband almost say, "You have the same name as our son," but he stops himself and I can tell his brain is connecting the dots. We leave the restaurant, and when we're getting ready for bed, he confronts me about Isaiah. I admit to it. I apologize and stress that it wasn't a serious relationship. We were both graduating and didn't want to stay together. I don't think of adult Isaiah when I see our son either. My husband says that if we have a daughter, he wants to name her after one of his exes during the fight. This makes me feel like shit and I realize I may have been the asshole. So can you guys tell me, am I the asshole here?
Storytime about how I beat up my stalker of 4 years. When I was 18, I booked a major campaign. I started modeling at the age of 10, and it was a really big deal for me. This happened in a country where women are not treated very well. When my campaign came out, there were billboards of me everywhere in the city. My face was plastered on the internet and on social media too. Now from this, my Instagram grew a lot. Overnight, I went from having 6,000 followers to 40,000 followers. So by the end of the week, I had almost 100,000 followers. Again, this was a huge deal for me and I was really happy about it. But things started getting really weird when I started checking my DMs. I had about 40 DMs from one guy alone. The rest of the DMs were thirst traps, but this guy was different. He was becoming obsessive literally overnight. Every other message was about how beautiful I was and how he wanted to marry me. Instead of replying, I decided to ignore his messages. From this campaign, I started getting even more modeling jobs. And I also started getting paid to post stuff on Instagram. I was super happy. When I checked my DMs again, I noticed that he was messaging me even more. Once again, I ignored every single one of his messages. But after 4 days, he started getting really angry. Started commenting bitch on all of my pictures. Got to the point where I had to tell my modeling agency and they just told me to ignore him too. A few days later, I opened his DMs only to see a picture of my house. And this meant he knew where I lived. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I'm sending me an Instagram. Once again, I told my modeling agency and again, they told me to just ignore it. But it terrified me that he knew where I lived. Luckily, I lived in a really big apartment building, so I don't think he knew exactly what floor I lived on. But I took a chance and I sent him a message asking him politely to leave me alone. Believe it or not, this went on for 4 years. I would tell him to leave me alone and he would just come back with more things to say. During those 4 years, I did travel a lot for modeling, so it didn't bother me that much. Not until I got pregnant. He actually sent me a picture of me pregnant. That's when he told me that I had betrayed him and that I was cheating on him. One day I'm at my apartment and yes, I had already met a man at this time and we were engaged. My fiance was out at work. I decided to take some time off of modeling since I was pregnant. Suddenly I get a knock on my door. I opened the door to a stranger I had never seen before. Obviously at the time I didn't know it was my stalker because I didn't know what he looked like. That's when he hands me a package and he tells me that I must have left it downstairs. I told him I hadn't ordered anything and then he asked if he could come in. I said no, but he pushed his way in. When he grabbed my hand and started begging for forgiveness. And he confessed that he had been sending me the messages for 4 years. Started yelling at him to leave, but he wouldn't. He tried to kiss my pregnant belly and asked me if it was his son. And that's when I just started kicking and punching him. And I didn't stop until he was out the door. When I looked at his face, he was bleeding and scratched all over. Neighbor had come out and had already called the cops, thank God. Cops arrested him and he was taken away. They were only able to hold him for 2 weeks. Apparently he had not broken any laws. This man is out there free. What should I do?
Am I the a-hole for dropping out of maid of honor role last minute because of an emergency? My best friend Chloe was getting married last Saturday, and I was the maid of honor. For 1 year straight, I was the main planner for her and did the best that I could to fit the standards she had set for the wedding. I even planned an amazing bachelorette party for 1 month before the wedding. But I couldn't do this without the gorgeous bridesmaids as well. 2 days before the wedding, my husband had a heart attack and was hospitalized. Doctor said his situation was severe, and he was transferred in an ICU. Later, doctors told me he needs an emergency open heart surgery the next 24 hours. The situation was very life-threatening, and we could lose him any time. My best friend called me to wish me well, and I thanked her. She also asked if the surgery will happen before the wedding, and I said that it will happen the day before, but it will last for many hours. She said, "That's all right. Just making sure it doesn't intervene with the wedding, that's all. It's sad we can't have Ben there, my husband, but we'll have you and you can eat and drink for both of you. Haha." That's when I told her I won't be able to come to the wedding whether my husband's surgery is over or not, because I need to care for him and I want to be next to him until we are all 100% sure he's gonna be fine. She said she understands, but she reminded me that as a maid of honor I have a duty, and it's 1 day before the wedding, so I can't drop out. I said that I am sorry about this, but I almost lost my husband and I don't want to leave his side yet. She didn't curse me out or anything, but she was very upset and she started crying. She said she understands and wished me well again. My husband's surgery went well, and we were now waiting for his recovery. It was the day of the wedding, and I called my best friend to wish her well. She didn't pick up. Later, a video called one of the bridesmaids, and she answered. I asked to talk to Chloe, but she said she's busy getting ready. I said, fine, I'll call later. I called again and again, but no response. I thought she was simply busy with the preparations. I called the day after the wedding, and still no response. She wouldn't reply to my text at all. I contacted some of the bridesmaids and they told me that she's very upset with me for dropping out the day before the wedding, and that I should make it work no matter what. Some of them said I did what's reasonable and how my husband's health should be my priority, but some others feel like I let down the bride on her big day, and I shouldn't expect a word from her anytime soon. Am I the a-hole? Long story short, my grandparents are wealthy. My mother is very spoiled and self-centered. Additionally, I believe she likely has a cluster B personality disorder. Every single situation is somehow about her. My dad's side can't stand her because she sows chaos anywhere she goes. For example, my dad's side threw a birthday party for one of my cousins. The whole day was focused on a fight because she spent $8 on ingredients to make a lasagna to bring, then ruins the poor kid's birthday. This is just one example. But this every situation, every time she is the center of everything. Her family is pretty wild. I've been present for multiple fist fights between her and her sisters. Every fight stems from someone getting more money than the other. One time, my mom had a phone cord wrapped around my aunt's neck. Although terrible, it was kind of impressive to be honest, as my mom's a small person. Anyway, despite my grandparents being wealthy, I grew up pretty poor in the beginning. My mom got cut off a few years. Probably had something to do with the phone cord incident. I remember going to food banks for food, clothes for donations, etc. When things did get better, my parents refused to spend any money on me. If I had clothes for school, it was because my aunt bought me an outfit for Christmas. I mean, they were ridiculous with it. My grandfather, dad's side, tried to get custody of me due to neglected alcoholism. As for the wealthy grandparents, look, I'm not entitled. It's their money. But every grandchild except me got their college paid for, got a car, a down payment on a house, and a wedding. Super freaking generous. I was just hurt that I got none of these things. It felt personal. I felt it was their way of communicating that they loved me less, and that damaged our relationship. Fast forward to this week. I'm engaged. I wasn't expecting a big wedding. I was okay with eloping. But I figured my parents might want to do something since I'm their only kid. So I asked them what they wanted to do. Well, my mom was drunk because, it's 2 p.m. Confesses to the 30,000 thing. Then the next day, non-stop pressuring me to taking out a loan. I refused and say, you were given 30,000 for a wedding and a down payment, but you decided vacations and cars were more important. Then the whole thing gets turned into, poor her. Can you believe she won't get to plan a wedding with her daughter because the daughter expects a wedding to be paid in full? What a spoiled witch. Now I have relatives calling me up with this BS. They're under the impression that I'm being a diva. I keep dodging the conversation, but I don't know how long I can do it. Because once my relatives find out, there is no saving her reputation with them. Also, through all of this, found out my grandparents did give money for college. The problem is they gave it to my mom and she spent it. It must have been a decent amount too because my grandparents are under the impression that they paid my college in full. I'm at a loss. I haven't talked to my parents in a week. I know they're my parents and I need to forgive them no matter what, but this is hard. It almost feels like they aren't my parents anymore. That bonding feeling, or whatever it is gone. Sorry that this post was long. It felt cathartic typing this out. Am I the a-hole for not letting my niece borrow my engagement ring? I, 28 female, recently got engaged to the man of my dreams, and he picked the perfect engagement ring. I can't get over how well he did without asking me any questions about it. It even fits perfectly despite neither of us actually knowing my ring size. I was watching my little niece, 6 female, this weekend when she saw my ring. She thought it was really pretty and wanted to try it on. I explained to her that this ring was very special to me and that I didn't want anyone else wearing it. However, I have other jewelry that we could go through together and she could wear if she wanted. She didn't. She just wanted to wear this ring. So she started pouting. I tried to get her to focus on other things and activities, but she was still in a mood about it by the time my sister, 26 female, came to pick her up a couple of hours later. My sister was annoyed. I'd asked why I couldn't just let her wear it for a little bit. I tried to explain, but she said I just don't understand kids. Later in the week, my sister stopped by with my niece to let my dogs out while I was at work. In my line of work, wearing a ring isn't very practical. So I leave it in the ring box by my bed and put it back on when I get home. When I get home, I couldn't find it. I panicked. I looked everywhere I could think of. I called my sister to see if she had seen it while she was there, and she admitted she took it and let my niece wear it for the day. I was fuming. They had gone to the zoo. It could have been lost anywhere. My sister even admitted that they had forgotten it on a table for a few minutes. But I shouldn't be mad because they got it back. I yelled at my sister that she shouldn't have taken the ring when I specifically told her I didn't want my niece or anyone else wearing it, because I was worried about this exact kind of thing happening. I told her that I would find someone else to let my dogs out when I was working, and that she wasn't allowed in my house when I'm not home anymore. She said I'm being unfair to my niece who loves my dogs, and just wanted to feel like a princess for a little while. I'm not mad at my niece, and I don't want to punish her for what my sister did. Am I the a-hole?
This video is probably going to be deemed as controversial, which is so sad that it would. Because in reality, there shouldn't be anything controversial about the fact that women don't owe you anything. When you call a girl pretty or compliment her outfit or take her out to dinner, that does not mean she owes you anything in return. That does not mean she owes you her phone number or favors in bed or going home with you. And it's sad because half the time, the reason a woman won't say no is because a lot of men out there take the word no and the response no as a form of disrespect towards them, when in reality, it's not. A lot of times when a girl tells a guy no, it resorts to violence towards the woman, whether that be verbal violence, physical violence, and a lot of the times even SA, all because a girl said no. And it all stems from the fact that a lot of men out there think that women owe them something. You can call a girl pretty all you want and take her out to dinner as many times as you want, but that does not erase the fact that women don't owe you anything. So to all those men and women out there, women don't owe you.
Imagine going on a cruise with your family only to end up on the FBI's most wanted missing persons list. This was the fate of a young girl named Amy Lynn Bradley when she went on a holiday family vacation. Amy had just graduated and boarded the Royal Caribbean's Rhapsody of the Seas cruise with her parents and her brother Brad in March of 1998. The family was having a great time together, enjoying all the ship's amenities, and Amy even became friends with the ship's band, the Blue Orchid. On the night of March 23rd, Amy and her brother partied in the ship's club. Amy danced and chatted with the bass player, Yellow, aka Alistair Douglas. Around 1 a.m., the siblings called it a night and returned to their family's cabin together. This would be the last time that Brad ever saw his sister. A few hours later at 5:30 in the morning, Ron Bradley, Amy's father, saw her on the deck of their family's stateroom lounging peacefully. All seemed well, but 30 minutes later when he looked again, Amy had vanished. Ron assumed Amy went back to sleep in her bedroom, but when he checked, she wasn't there either. Ron went and checked the ship's common areas but couldn't find Amy, and the family started to worry. They begged the cruise ship staff to cancel docking at Curacao but were ignored. Both 2,400 passengers and 765 crew members were allowed off the ship. As the Bradley family continued to desperately search for Amy, the ship's staff remained unhelpful. They didn't want to announce her disappearance or hang photos of her around the vessel, afraid it might upset the other passengers, and they only searched common areas, not staff or passenger cabins. It was possible that Amy might have fallen overboard, but extremely unlikely because she was a trained lifeguard and experienced avid swimmer. That's when her family recalled how Amy was receiving a lot of special attention from the ship's crew. A waiter had asked Amy out to a restaurant called Carlos and Charlie's during the ship's dock to Aruba. However, Amy had rejected this offer and stated how the crew members gave her the creeps. She wasn't wrong to feel this way, as it just so happens another young American woman had disappeared shortly after being seen at that same restaurant in Aruba. The Bradley family did everything in their power to find Amy, but it was like she vanished completely and all the leads went cold. However, the Bradley family never gave up and were hopeful, but multiple people in the Caribbean claimed to have seen their daughter over the years. Just 5 months after her disappearance, 2 Canadian tourists spotted a woman who matched Amy's description on the beach with the exact same tattoos as Amy. These tattoos were pretty specific, such as a Tasmanian devil with a basketball on her shoulder, a sun on her lower back, a lizard on her stomach, and a Chinese symbol on her left ankle. She was accompanied by 2 men, and she tried to say something, but the man gestured her away. One of the tourists believes 100% that it was her. The following year, a woman comes forward saying that she's Amy Lynn Bradley at a brothel in Curacao. 1 year after Amy Lynn Bradley's disappearance in 1999, a member of the Navy was in a brothel in Curacao when a woman came up to him and told him that she's Amy Lynn Bradley. She begged for his help, but he didn't report it because he didn't want to get in trouble. The officer stayed quiet until after his retirement when he saw Amy's face on People magazine, but by then she was long gone. That same year, the Bradley family gained a tremendous amount of hope when a man named Frank Jones, claiming to be a former U.S. Army Special Forces officer, contacted them. He stated that he knew exactly where Amy was and he could rescue her from the armed Colombians holding her in Curacao. Jones even had a witness statement from a cook who told the family that Amy was being held in a complex protected with barbed wire. The cook described Amy's tattoos and even hummed a lullaby that Amy's mom used to sing to her daughter when she was a baby. However, this all later turned out to be complete fraud. Jones managed to scam the Bradleys out of over $200,000 with his charade of getting their daughter back. It turns out that all the evidence he showed them was made up, leaving the Bradleys back at square one. However, the sightings of Amy didn't stop. In 2005, the Bradleys received an email with a picture of a woman who appeared to be Amy, lying on a bed in her underwear. A member of an organization that locates sex trafficking victims on adult websites noticed the photo and thought it was Amy. She was identified as a woman named Jazz, a sex worker in the Caribbean. Unfortunately, this clue never generated new leads, and to this day, Amy Lynn Bradley remains missing. She continues to be listed on the FBI's most wanted missing persons list. Her family, however, has never given up hope and have offered sizable rewards and information on her whereabouts.
Would I be the asshole by not telling a guy I've been dating for a month that I'm having artificial insemination to be a single mother? Prior to lockdown, I decided to be a single mother by choice. The journey to accepting this has taken 2 years and included counseling and a very thorough plan to ensure I could do this alone. Right before I was due to have artificial insemination with the donor sperm, the pandemic hit and treatments were canceled. There was no timeline for when things may reopen. For a few days, I was devastated as I was so mentally prepared for this, and then I picked myself up and decided to park my plan. After all, I didn't have a choice. I downloaded a dating app out of curiosity and figured that I could still chat to guys and see what happened without having any expectations. I've been talking with this guy, let's call him G, and it's only been a month, so very early stage. However, we've met up twice and spoken many times on the phone. And I get a really good feeling from him. For the first time in years, quite frankly, I feel emotionally connected with the man and it feels completely natural and promising. During this time, my clinic called me to say they have an approval to open and do I wish to go ahead this month with my treatment. I want to be a mother more than ever, so I said yes, and now I'm on medication with my appointment set for next week. While there's no guarantee I'll get pregnant on the first go, I have a conflict in mind about informing G of my plan. On one hand, it's at such an early stage of our romance without yet being anything committed that I feel like I'm bringing something up prematurely. On the other hand, I wonder what may happen as time goes on. Am I just delaying the inevitable? Is it deceptive of me not to inform him of something so fundamental in my life? A friend told me that I'd sabotage a potential relationship with him by telling him of this plan right now, and that a man who is really into me will accept me even if I'm pregnant, and that more time is needed for him to really get to know me. But in my mind, I'm wondering if it will piss him off by suddenly saying, hey, I'm pregnant by the way. Spoken loosely about wanting kids in the future, so I know he'd like a family, but it was a brief passing comment. I'm also not willing to wait to get into a long-term relationship, and we are far too early into be thinking about a family together.
Thinking where to go, I wonder every night. Swimming through your love and my sick lullabies. I don't wanna say things out of pride, but when I think of you, I get a kick inside. Wanna say hi when you're not fine. Wanna kiss you and make it right. Let me dance with you beneath the sky. I could be the one to say goodnight. I've seen you at the party, dancing so divine. Your body on my body, it never felt so right. You thought I was a bad guy, but had a different light. Your body on my body, it never felt so right. Never felt so right.
We never lie, we never lie. We never lie, never lie. We never lie, we never lie. We never lie, never lie. We never lie, we 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 never lie, we never lie. You've seen us talk, yeah. You've seen us walk, yeah. Try.
Hi guys, thank you for watching. I love you guys so much. Please like and subscribe to see more great videos. See you again.